Hello, in this video we're going to discuss deed fraud and how it can affect the correct ownership of a property and hurt the people who really should have ownership rights and have them not recorded. This is Dave again at TitleSearch.com. Deed fraud normally originates from some type of forgery. Somebody will sign over a deed to a property that really they had no right in erasing property ownership. Part of the reason this is possible is that no notice is normally made of a property transfer. So if you own a property and for some reason a deed is signed transferring your ownership rights to somebody else, in most cases you will receive no notice of that until or unless that other person comes knocking on the door saying, hey, here's my house. A lot of times deed fraud is performed by criminals who try to locate vacant properties because they know that in most cases there's not going to be anybody at the property to become aware that other people are either in the house or looking at the house or even appraising the house for a loan or some other purpose. Another red flag that will notify criminals that there's a possible opportunity to do deed fraud is unpaid taxes. If you have a house where the taxes are delinquent and it's vacant, that will probably be a target for criminals to try to perform deed fraud. In some cases, in most states, it's easier actually to steal a house than it is to steal your car because a car at least is locked up and the title is held somewhere, where deed fraud you can just do out in the open through the land records office. In most cases, deed fraud results in a cash-out refinance versus a sale. It's easier to get a bank to lend money on a house than it is to actually sell a house. When you sell a house, you have to get involved realtors, and people have to be in the house to look at it and inspect it. And in that case, it takes more time and might discover the fact that that deed was fraudulent. But if somebody finds a vacant house, they sign over a deed and forge your name as the owner and sign it over to themselves, they can go to a bank and say, look, I own this house free and clear, there's no loans on it, and maybe they can get a cash out refinance for even 50% of the value. They take the cash and run, and you're left holding the bag with a loan on your house that you did not get. If that happens and you are a victim of deed fraud, you can expect that you're going to have to contact law enforcement. They'll start the criminal complaint process, but in most cases, they're not going to pursue it that much because it'll be a civil matter. They're going to not have too much to go on. You can expect to need to get the involvement of some private investigative resources and legal efforts. You're going to definitely need to get an attorney. Remember that the county recorder cannot catch deed fraud. They're obligated to record all deeds and documents that are presented to them that meet the basic technical standards. If a deed shows up on their doorstep, it's put on their desk for recording. Unless there's something wrong with it in terms of how it appears, they can't verify signatures, they can't see if the owner actually sold it. Recording speed is the priority. Every state has what's called a race notice requirement. The first deed that gets there has priority over the other, so they can't hold on to a deed while they investigate it. They have to get it recorded directly. Another thing to keep in mind on deed fraud is if there's a property that's been held in a family and one of the family members passes away, the person who becomes deceased, at some point that property has to transfer to the next generation and to the heirs. If that's not done immediately, there's going to be some ambiguity and some vague ownership rights in that property. The longer that remains, it's harder to fix that later. That's a perfect example of where deed fraud can come in. You know, Grandpa John Jones dies 50 years ago. Yeah, the children know that they own the house technically, but they're not too fast on transferring the deed. That could be something that results in deed fraud while that property goes through one generation to another. So the bottom line is that probate property immediately. If you have a family property that's been passed down through generations, make sure each generation gets their own deed and transfers the property so you don't have to go back and fix it later, because in the meantime anybody can sign over that property and it can be stolen. So for more information, you can click the link at the bottom of this video. It goes to TitleSearch.com or AFXSearch.com investigators. We'll see you in the next video about real estate or investigative resources. And if you think of somebody else you know who will benefit from this video, certainly pass this along to them. Send the link, and our video library has many other examples of real estate subjects.